Mira was bored. It was late evening in the research facility library, and most of the students were tired. Some were reading quietly. Others were half asleep over their books. The large white lights buzzed above, filling the air with a soft hum. Mira leaned back in her chair, looking around for something to make the night less dull. Then she noticed Aaron. He was sitting at the far table, his head resting on an open notebook. His hair fell over his face, his pen still in his hand. He was not just resting, he was completely asleep. Mira smiled, her eyes lighting up with mischief. She whispered to her friend Lena, "Look, Aaron is gone. He's dreaming in the middle of study hours." Lena giggled softly. "Don't bother him, Mira. Let him rest," but Mira's grin grew wider. "No, I have a funny idea." She tiptoed toward Aaron's table. Each step light and careful, the other students looked up. Curious, but no one stopped her. When she reached him, she looked down at his calm face. "Sleeping like a baby," she muttered. Shaking her head, then without warning, she pulled out the chair next to him and sat right on his lap. The students gasped softly, some covering their mouths to hide laughter. It was only meant to be a silly prank, a harmless joke. Mira expected him to wake up with a shout, maybe push her away in surprise. But what happened next was nothing anyone could explain. The moment she sat on him, Aaron's body stiffened. A faint glow spread across his skin, first on his arms, then his neck, then his entire face. The glow was soft, almost golden, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. Mira froze, her smile vanishing, her breath catching in her throat. "Aaron?" she whispered, suddenly nervous. Then the room shook. Not like a small tremor, but a deep vibration that made the tables rattle and the glass windows shiver. The lights above flickered wildly, flashing on and off. Books fell from shelves with loud thuds. Students screamed and ducked under tables. But the sound that filled the room was not of breaking, it was a low, humming wave like something alive had been released. Mira jumped to her feet, stepping back, her eyes wide in horror. Aaron's body lifted slightly from the chair as if invisible hands were holding him up. His head leaned back, his eyes shut tight, but glowing faint blue through his eyelids. A strange circle of light spread outward from his chest, expanding across the floor. When it touched the walls, every screen and electronic device in the library died instantly. Phones turned black, computers sparked and shut off. Even the emergency exit signs dimmed. Silence followed, a silence so heavy it felt unnatural. No one dared to move, no one dared to breathe. Mira's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She had only meant to play a prank. Now she was standing in the middle of something terrifying. Aaron finally opened his eyes. They were no longer the soft brown everyone knew. They were glowing bright like twin suns in the shadows. He looked around the room in confusion, his voice shaking. "What happened?" His words carried a strange echo, as if more than one voice spoke at once. The students backed away, whispering in panic. "Is he possessed? Is this a power surge? No, this feels wrong." Mira swallowed hard, her legs trembling. She wanted to say something, to calm him, but the words would not leave her lips. She had seen jokes go wrong before, but never like this. Never something that could not be explained by reason or science. Then, as quickly as it began, the glow faded. The circle of light on the floor vanished. Aaron collapsed back into the chair, gasping for air. His pen dropped to the floor with a sharp click. His glowing eyes dimmed to normal, leaving only shock and fear. The doors burst open. 2 security guards rushed in, weapons at the ready. "What happened here?" one demanded, scanning the room. The students pointed toward Aaron, still shaking, but when the guards looked at him, all they saw was a pale, trembling boy. Nothing broke," the second guard muttered, confused. But his voice held unease. He felt something strange in the air. Mira stood frozen, staring at Aaron. She could still feel the warmth of the glow on her skin. Her prank had done this, she was sure of it. But how could something so simple, so silly, unlock something so powerful? Her stomach twisted with guilt and fear. She did not know what she had awakened, but deep inside, she felt one thing clearly. This was only the beginning. The library was still in shock. Some students whispered nervously. Others hurried out of the room as if afraid the walls might collapse. The security guards looked at one another with uncertain eyes, their hands still gripping their weapons, though there was no clear enemy. And in the middle of it all sat Aaron, pale and trembling. His body leaned against the chair as if every bit of strength had drained from him. Mira stood only a few feet away, her prank replayed in her mind over and over. She had meant to wake him with laughter, not unleash. Whatever this was, her lips moved but no words came out. It was as if her throat had locked shut with fear. Aaron finally lifted his head. His eyes, though no longer glowing, carried a strange sharpness. It was as if he was seeing things that no one else could see. He whispered hoarsely, "Did you feel it too?" The students exchanged nervous looks, but no one answered. Only the faint hum of dead electronics filled the room, a silence heavier than any noise. Mira stepped closer, her voice shaking. "Aaron, you were glowing." He blinked at her, confusion written across his face. "Glowing?" he repeated as if the word made no sense, but deep inside, he already knew something had changed. The guards approached, one speaking firmly. "We'll need both of you to come with us now." Mira felt her heart race. They were not just asking questions, they were ordering. Something told her that once they left this library, nothing would be normal again. They were taken to a quiet medical wing inside the facility. Machines lined the walls, though most of them were still dead from the strange pulse that had spread earlier. Scientists rushed in, carrying tablets and hushed whispers. Their eyes did not look at Aaron with sympathy, but with hunger. Like hunters spotting rare prey, Mira noticed it immediately, and it chilled her more than the glowing light had. One scientist leaned close to Aaron, shining a small flashlight into his eyes. The beam reflected strangely, almost bending as if his pupils were not quite normal anymore. Another scientist placed metal sensors on his skin, only to gasp when the readings spiked so high the screen froze. Whispers filled the room. "It's true. It matches the old files," Mira frowned. "Old files? What are you talking about?" But the scientist ignored her, focused entirely on Aaron. Aaron shifted uncomfortably. "I don't feel normal," he admitted. His hands shook, and when he lifted one, the metal tray on the counter trembled as if pulled by an invisible string. The scientists gasped again, scribbling notes. Mira's breath caught. "You're moving it." "Without touching." Aaron dropped his hand quickly, the tray clattering to the floor. "I didn't mean to," he said, panic in his voice. "I didn't even try." The guards exchanged uneasy glances, their grips tightening on their weapons. It was clear they did not trust what they were seeing. The scientists, however, seemed almost excited, one whispered. "The legends were right. Humanity was never weak, it was only asleep." Mira's eyes widened. "What do you mean asleep?" But again, no answer came that night. Aaron was kept in the medical wing. Mira refused to leave him, sitting in the corner with her knees pulled close. She felt both guilty and protective after all. This had started with her prank. When Aaron finally closed his eyes, his breathing deep but uneven, Mira tried to rest as well, but her own sleep brought no peace. She woke in the middle of the night to the sound of Aaron murmuring. His body glowed faintly again, not as bright as before, but enough to light the dark room. His lips whispered words she did not understand. Names, places, battles. Mira leaned closer, heart pounding. "Aaron, wake up," she whispered, shaking his shoulder. But when his eyes snapped open, they burned with blue fire, and his voice, layered with echoes, spoke words not his own. "The Titans must rise again." Mira stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. Aaron blinked rapidly, the glow fading as quickly as it had come. He looked at her in confusion. "What did I say?" Mira could not answer. How could she tell him that something or someone was speaking through him? By morning, word had spread through the facility. Rumors moved faster than truth. Some said Aaron had caused an explosion. Others whispered he was part alien. A few even claimed he was dangerous and should be locked away. But none of them knew the full truth. Aaron himself barely understood it. Only Mira had seen enough to realize something greater was happening. She remembered the glowing circle, the dead electronics, the strange echo in his voice. It was not just a prank gone wrong. It was the beginning of something far bigger. She looked at Aaron, still weak but sitting upright in her heart. She knew one thing clearly. Whatever had awakened inside him, it was not going to stay hidden, and sooner or later, the world would learn what humanity truly was. Days passed, but nothing felt normal anymore. The library was repaired, the students returned to their books, and the lights hummed again. But the memory of that glowing shockwave stayed in everyone's minds. They whispered about it in hallways. They stared at Aaron when he walked past. Some looked at him with fear, others with awe, and Aaron himself could not escape the strange changes happening inside him. At first it was small things. A pen rolled across the desk without him touching it. A glass of water trembled whenever his emotions grew strong. Sometimes lights flickered when he entered a room. He tried to ignore it, tried to act normal. But Mira noticed everything. She kept her eyes on him, worried yet curious. She felt connected to all of this, as if her prank had tied her fate to his. One evening, Aaron sat alone in his dorm room. He pressed his hands against his temples, his head pounding with strange visions. Flashes of battle filled his mind. Vast fields lit with fire, warriors standing tall against dark skies. Their bodies glowed with the same golden light he had felt inside himself. And above it all, a voice thundered, "The Titans shall not sleep forever." Aaron jolted awake from the vision. His chest heaving, sweat ran down his face. His hands trembling, he stared at his reflection in the mirror across the room. For a moment, his eyes glowed faint blue. He whispered, "What is happening to me?" But no answer came, only the echo of that strange ancient voice. The scientists were not silent either. They kept calling him back to the medical wing. More tests, more machines, more notes written in secret. Mira followed him whenever she could. Refusing to leave him alone with them, one day, she overheard two scientists whispering, "This matches the ruins from the desert site." Yes, the energy signature is the same. The lost power of humanity, Mira froze. Her heart racing, she had no idea what ruins they meant. But their words hinted at something far older and far bigger than Aaron's accident. The signs only grew stronger. When Aaron spoke, people listened. It was not just his voice, it carried something deeper, something that made others lean closer. Even when he whispered, his words seemed to sink into people's hearts. One guard confessed later, "When he told me to calm down, I couldn't even feel angry anymore." It was as if his presence itself had weight. Mira noticed it too when Aaron looked at her. It felt like the air around them tightened, not in fear, but in power. A power too great for one boy to carry one night, unable to sleep. Mira found Aaron sitting outside under the stars. He looked tired, his eyes staring far into the darkness above. She sat beside him quietly, waiting for him to speak. Finally, he whispered, "Mira, I see things that are not mine." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I dream of battles, of people with glowing skin, their strength shaking mountains," he said, voice low. "And in the dream, I'm one of them." Mira's breath caught. "Do you think this was always inside us?" she asked carefully. Aaron looked at her, his face pale in the moonlight. "I don't know," he admitted, "but it feels ancient, like something waiting to wake up." The following morning, something happened that removed all doubt. During a training exercise with the guards, Aaron stumbled. A guard tried to catch him, but slipped, his weapon flying through the air. The gun spun straight toward Mira before anyone could shout. Aaron's hand shot out, the gun froze in midair, hanging only inches from Mira's chest. Everyone gasped. Aaron's eyes blazed with blue light. He slowly lowered the weapon onto the table without touching it. The room went silent, no one moved, no one spoke. Even the guards, men trained to face danger, stepped back in fear. Mira's hands shook as she realized what just happened. He had saved her without moving a step. He had bent the world to his will, and he had done it instinctively. Without thinking, later that night, Aaron sat alone again. He could feel the power inside him growing stronger. It scared him, but it also whispered to him, voices from beyond, calling him toward something bigger. Mira watched him from the doorway, her chest tight with both fear and pride. She knew one thing clearly. This was not just about Aaron. This was about all of humanity. If one boy could awaken such power, then what would happen if more humans awoke too? Mira's prank had set fire to something hidden deep inside the human race. And now that fire was spreading, Aaron was no longer just her classmate, no longer just a sleepy boy in a library. He was the first sign of what humanity truly was, and the galaxy would not stay blind to it for long. The facility had changed. What once felt like a normal place of study now felt like a cage. Guards stood at every corner, scientists whispered behind closed doors, and everywhere Aaron walked, eyes followed him. Some eyes were afraid, some were curious, and some burned with greed. Mira stayed close to him, refusing to let him face this strange new world alone. One afternoon, a group of senior scientists summoned them into a hidden chamber deep below the facility. The walls here were old, lined with heavy stone instead of modern metal. Strange carvings glowed faintly on the surface, shapes that looked like humans standing tall with light pouring from their hands. Aaron stopped in his tracks, staring at the walls with wide eyes. He whispered, I've seen this place. In my dreams. The scientists exchanged quick glances, their faces pale. Mira's stomach tightened. Aaron's visions were not just dreams. They were memories from somewhere older. A scientist named Dr. Halen stepped forward, his voice low but steady. Aaron, what you awakened is not new. It is ancient, he tapped the carvings on the wall. These are not just drawings. They are records, Mira frowned. Records of what? Dr. Halen's eyes gleamed as he answered. Records of what humanity once was. They guided Aaron and Mira deeper, into a chamber filled with sealed containers and dust-covered tablets. Inside the glass cases were old relics, shards of armor, weapons that shimmered faintly even though they had not been touched for centuries. Mira's breath caught at the sight of them. Each piece felt alive, humming softly, as if waiting for someone to pick it up again. Aaron stepped closer to a broken gauntlet resting on a pedestal. As his hand hovered above it, the shards glowed faintly, resonating with his presence. The scientist gasped, scribbling notes wildly. Dr. Halen spoke again, his voice trembling. Long ago, humanity was feared across the stars. He gestured to the relics. We were known as Titans, beings of light and strength, powerful enough to shake the galaxy. Mira's mouth fell open. That can't be true. Humans are just normal. Halen shook his head. Not normal. Only forgotten. He leaned closer, his tone sharp. And now, it seems the memory is waking again. Aaron felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He did not want to be special. He did not want to carry the title of Titan. But deep inside the visions, the glowing power, the strange control over objects, he knew it was true, he whispered. Why now? Why me? Halen answered simply. Because someone had to be first. Mira felt a shiver run through her spine. Her prank, the silly act of sitting on him, had been the spark. And now that spark was turning into fire that night. Mira found Aaron sitting again beneath the stars. He held a small shard from the chamber, one that the scientists allowed him to keep. It glowed softly in his palm, pulsing like a heartbeat. Mira sat beside him, her voice gentle. Do you believe what they said? About Titans? Aaron looked at the shard, then at her. I don't want to believe it. But every day the power grows stronger. He clenched his fist, the shard glowing brighter. And every night, the dreams return, showing me battles I've never fought, victories I've never lived. Mira studied his face carefully. He looked tired, older somehow, as if carrying the weight of generations. She whispered, Maybe it's not just your story, Aaron. Maybe it's all of ours. He met her gaze, his eyes flickering faintly with light. Then what happens if the rest of humanity wakes up too? The answer came sooner than either of them expected. The next morning, alarms blared through the facility. Scientists ran through the halls. Shouting into dead radios, Mira grabbed Aaron's arm. What's happening? Before anyone could answer, Dr. Halen burst into the room, panic on his face. They heard it, he gasped. The pulse from your awakening. It traveled farther than we thought, Mira frowned. Who heard it? Halen's eyes darkened. The ones who feared us long ago. Aaron felt a cold shiver crawl down his spine. The relic in his pocket throbbed as if alive, warning him. He remembered the alien figures from his dreams. The ones who had called humanity the sleeping Titans. If they were real, if they were still out there, then they would know Earth was stirring again. That night, as Mira tried to sleep, she could not shake the weight of what they had discovered. She thought of the glowing carvings, the relics that hummed with power, the words carved into the stone walls. The Titans shall rise. She thought of Aaron glowing beneath the stars, his power growing stronger with every breath. And she thought of the galaxy beyond, listening, watching, preparing. Her prank had not only awakened Aaron, it had awakened the memory of what humanity truly was. And soon the entire galaxy would learn the truth. The Titans were no myth, they were real, and they were waking. The pulse had not stayed on Earth, it had spread far, racing through the void of space like a silent scream. And in the darkness between stars, someone had heard it. Someone who remembered the Titans not as heroes, but as monsters in a distant council chamber. Far beyond Earth's reach, alien voices rose in panic. Holographic images filled the air, readings of the energy wave that had erupted from Aaron's awakening. A tall reptilian leader slammed his claws against the table, his scales trembling with fear. It is them, he hissed. The Titans stir again, another alien. Insect-like with shimmering wings, buzzed anxiously. But it has been thousands of cycles. They were gone, dead. Forgotten? The reptilian leaned forward, his voice cold, not dead, only sleeping. And now one has awakened, the council chamber filled with silence. Then a smaller alien, cloaked in shadow, whispered the words no one wanted to hear. If even one rises, the rest will follow. A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. The decision was swift. They would not wait. They would strike Earth before the Titans could rise again. Back on Earth, Aaron felt the change before anyone else. He woke in the middle of the night, his chest burning as if fire lived inside him. Mira sat up from her bed across the room, startled. "Aaron, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharp with worry. Aaron pressed a hand against his chest, his eyes glowing faintly. "They're coming," he whispered, his voice shaking. Mira frowned. "Who?" He looked at her with fear in his eyes. "The ones from my dreams. The ones who killed the Titans before." The next morning, Dr. Halen rushed into the medical wing, his face pale. He carried a tablet filled with intercepted transmissions. Mira peeked over his shoulder and saw strange symbols scrolling across the screen. "They're alien signals," Halen explained quickly. "And they're heading toward Earth." Aaron clenched his fists, his knuckles white. "So it's true," he muttered. "They fear us enough to kill us before we even begin." Governments across the world received the same warning. Satellites picked up the incoming fleet, massive ships cutting through the stars. Panic spread, leaders argued, armies prepared, and scientists scrambled to build defenses. But against such power, humanity looked fragile. Mira watched the news in silence, her chest tight for the first time. She felt the true weight of what her prank had unleashed. Aaron, however, seemed calmer. The glow in his eyes flickered each time the news mentioned the alien fleet. It was as if his very blood recognized the enemy. When Mira asked him why he wasn't panicking, he answered softly, "Because this isn't the first time we've faced them." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He looked far away, his voice low. "In my dreams I see them. We fought them before and we nearly destroyed each other. In secret, more humans began showing strange signs. A soldier in another country lifted a tank door with his bare hands. A nurse healed wounds faster than medicine could explain. A child spoke words in a language no one had taught him. Glowing faintly as he did, the scientists confirmed what Mira already suspected. The awakening was spreading. What had started with Aaron was no longer just his burden. It was humanity's destiny unfolding, but the aliens knew this too. Their fleet moved faster, their weapons primed. The Council's order was clear: destroy Earth before the Titans could rise in full. And already their warships glowed in the night sky, visible through telescopes and news broadcasts. People across the planet pointed at the heavens with fear and awe. The invasion was no longer rumor. It was a shadow growing larger every day. One evening, Mira and Aaron stood outside, staring at the stars. The glow of the alien fleet could already be seen as faint dots moving closer. Mira's voice was barely a whisper. "They're coming for you." Aaron shook his head, his tone firm. "No, Mira. They're coming for all of us." He clenched his fists, his power sparking faintly in the air around him. "They think humanity is weak, but they don't know what we are." Mira felt her chest tighten as she heard the fire in his voice. He was no longer just afraid. He was ready, the facility prepared for the worst. Bunkers were filled, weapons tested, satellites armed. But everyone knew the truth. Technology alone would not save them. The real weapon was awakening inside humanity itself, and Aaron was the proof of that. Mira could feel it in her bones. The prank that had once seemed silly had lit the first flame, and now, as the alien fleet approached, that flame was about to become fire. In the distance, the night sky shimmered with the faint glow of approaching warships. Humanity's ancient enemies were coming, and they were coming fast. The world was no longer quiet. Everywhere people whispered about the alien fleet. Some prayed, some panicked, some prepared for the end. But something else was happening too, something the aliens had not expected. Humans across the planet began to change. At first it was only Aaron, the boy Mira had awakened by accident. But now new stories appeared every day. A miner in South America stopped a cave-in with his bare hands. A woman in Africa calmed an entire riot by speaking only a few words. In Asia, a teenager lifted a broken bus off a trapped family without breaking a sweat. And everywhere, cameras caught it. The world could no longer deny it. Humanity was awakening. Mira sat in the library one evening, scrolling through reports on a cracked tablet. The headlines were everywhere. Superhuman strength in Brazil, glowing eyes in Tokyo, man walks through fire and survives. Her heart pounded as she read each one. She whispered, "It's spreading. It's really spreading." Aaron, sitting across from her, looked tired but calm. He nodded slowly. "It was never just me, Mira. I was only the first." Mira leaned closer, her voice hushed. "But why now? Why after all this time?" Aaron rubbed his temples, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "The pulse," he said softly. "When I awakened, it didn't stop with me, it rippled outward, calling to the rest of humanity." He looked at her seriously. "And they're answering. Governments tried to react quickly. Some nations tried to hide their awakened citizens. Others tried to recruit them into armies. But none could control the truth. The alien fleet was almost here, and humanity needed every bit of strength it could get." In the medical wing, scientists ran frantic tests on Aaron. Dr. Halen shook his head at the readings. "It's happening faster than we thought. Soon there will be thousands like him. Maybe millions." A guard nearby muttered nervously. "Or maybe monsters we can't control." The word stung Mira, but she saw fear in the man's eyes. The fear was not of the aliens, but of their own kind awakening. Aaron, however, did not flinch. He stood taller than before. His shoulders firm, his voice steady. "We are not monsters," he said firmly. "We are what we were always meant to be." That night, Mira found him training in the courtyard. His hands moved slowly through the air, and with each motion the stones around him shifted. One rose into the air, floating gently before lowering back down. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but his eyes burned with determination. Mira watched in silence. She could see how much the power drained him, how every use left him weaker, yet he kept going again and again. Finally, she stepped closer, her voice soft. "You don't have to carry this alone." "Aaron," he turned, breathing hard. "I know," he said. "That's why I have to be ready when the others rise. They'll need someone to lead." Mira froze at those words. He was no longer just the boy she once pranked. He was becoming something more, a symbol meanwhile. The alien fleet drew closer through telescopes. People could now see the faint glimmers of their ships. News stations broadcast the growing lights in the sky every hour. The fear grew, and yet alongside that fear, a strange hope began to rise. If humans truly carried this hidden power, maybe they could stand against the invaders. Mira walked through the city with Aaron one afternoon. They saw graffiti on walls. "Titans rise. We are not weak." Earth fights back. Children pointed at Aaron as he passed, whispering, "He's one of them." For the first time, Mira saw pride in people's faces instead of fear. She leaned toward Aaron, whispering, "They believe in you." He shook his head. "Not in me, Mira." In themselves, but hope was fragile. The aliens were not slowing down. Their warships were massive, their weapons powerful. If humanity did not unite, the awakening would be crushed before it could spread. In the secret chamber of relics, Aaron stood before the glowing carvings again. Mira at his side, he placed his hand against the stone, feeling the hum of ancient energy. His voice low, he said, "They want to kill us before we remember what we are. But they're too late." The carvings pulsed faintly, as if answering his words. Mira shivered, realizing the truth. This was no accident anymore. It was destiny. That night, as the alien fleet appeared brighter in the sky, Aaron gathered with Mira and the scientists. "We can't hide," he said, his voice strong. "We can't beg for mercy." He looked at each of them in turn, his glowing eyes steady. "We have to show them what humanity truly is, not weak, not broken, not asleep." Mira's heart pounded at his words. For the first time, she did not just fear the coming battle. She felt ready. Ready to stand with Aaron, ready to stand with all of humanity and high above. The alien fleet inched closer. Their commanders whispered of fear. Their soldiers prepared for war, but on Earth, humanity was stirring. For the first time in millennia, the Titans were rising. The night sky was no longer dark. It burned with the glow of alien ships. Massive war vessels covered the stars, blocking the heavens with their sharp black silhouettes. People across Earth looked up with fear, their faces lit by the distant fire of enemy engines. The invasion had begun. Mira stood on the rooftop of the facility, her chest tight. She could see the shapes moving in the sky, growing larger every hour. Around her, sirens wailed. Soldiers rushed into position and civilians prayed in silence. But beside her stood Aaron, glowing faintly. His eyes fixed on the stars, he was not trembling. Not hiding, he was waiting, Aaron, Mira whispered. They're really here. He nodded slowly, his voice steady. Yes. And they think we are still asleep. He clenched his fists, the air around him trembling. But tonight, we wake. The first strike came fast, a beam of searing energy tore through the sky, smashing into the ocean with a roar. Water rose in a tower of steam and fire. People screamed as the shockwave reached the coast, breaking windows and shaking buildings. The aliens did not waste time. They wanted Earth broken before it could fight back. Aaron raised his hand, his eyes blazing. The beam of energy split as it neared the city. Scattering harmlessly into the clouds, gasps rose from the soldiers below. He had stopped an attack that could have destroyed them all. Mira's breath caught, her heart pounding. He was no longer just a boy with strange powers. He was humanity's shield. The alien fleet moved closer, unleashing more fire, dozens of beams, missiles, and burning light rained down on Earth. But something unexpected happened. Humans all across the world began to rise. In Brazil, a miner lifted fallen rubble to shield families. In Japan, a glowing woman leapt into the sky and tore through a drone ship. In Africa, a group of awakens stood together, forming a wall of light to block incoming fire. The awakening was no longer hidden. It was everywhere. Aaron felt their presence. It was like 1,000 voices singing in his mind. He whispered, "They're with me." Mira grabbed his arm, her voice fierce. "No. Aaron, they're with all of us." The aliens unleashed their ground troops, tall, armored creatures with weapons of crackling energy stormed Earth's surface. The streets filled with fire and chaos as humans fought back with whatever they had. But then the awakened joined the fight. A young soldier crushed enemy armor with his bare hands. A nurse healed wounded fighters by touch alone. Children glowed like lanterns, confusing alien machines with their strange energy. Earth was not falling. Earth was fighting. In the heart of the battle, Aaron stepped forward. The largest alien warship hovered above the city, its shadow covering miles of land. Its cannons charged, glowing brighter and brighter. Mira clutched his sleeve, her voice trembling. "You can't fight that, it's too big." Aaron looked at her, his eyes burning with blue fire. "Then I'll be bigger," he whispered. He lifted both hands, and the ground itself seemed to shake. The sky lit with golden light pouring from his body. The warship fired, a beam so massive it could level the entire city. But Aaron caught it. The beam split against his hands, scattering into sparks that rained harmlessly over the rooftops. Gasps and cheers erupted below for the first time. Earth saw that it could fight back. Mira stared in awe as Aaron rose into the sky, his body glowing brighter with every heartbeat. He flew higher and higher until he stood before the alien warship. The soldiers inside panicked, their claws tapping frantically against control panels. "This is impossible." One screeched, "The Titans were myths." Another shouted, but the truth stood before them. Blazing with power, Aaron pressed his hands outward. A wave of golden light erupted from him. Spreading across the sky like a sunrise, the alien warship shuddered, its metal screaming as cracks split across its surface. Then with a thunderous roar, it exploded into fragments of fire and light. The shockwave shook the heavens. Visible across continents, for a moment, silence fell. The alien fleet hesitated, their ships frozen in fear. They had come expecting weak prey. Instead, they found Titans rising. Across the world, humans lifted their heads, their eyes glowing, their strength awakening. It was not just Aaron anymore, it was everyone. Mira felt tears sting her eyes as she watched the fire fade in the sky. Her prank had started all of this. Her silly joke had awakened the first Titan. And now humanity itself was waking, she whispered. "We're not weak anymore." The aliens broke formation. Retreating into the stars, their leaders shouted in panic, ordering a full withdrawal. They had come to kill the awakening. Instead, they had confirmed it. Earth was no longer silent, Earth was no longer asleep. As the night sky cleared, Aaron landed gently beside Mira, his body still glowing faintly. He looked tired, but his eyes carried something new, not fear. Not confusion, but purpose. Mira stepped closer, whispering, "You did it." Aaron shook his head, his voice calm. "No, Mira. We did it." He looked at the horizon where the first light of dawn was breaking. And this is only the beginning. The Titans had risen, and the galaxy would never forget humanity again.